Brad, it's great to see you here in the Gulf again. Thank you so much for joining me on The Record.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Walk me through what you're doing in Saudi Arabia.
Well, I'm spending 2 days here, of course, meeting with many people across the government, important customers, but also two really important announcements. The first is the longstanding work that we've been doing at Microsoft to bring our cloud, our data centers to Saudi Arabia, go live this year. And the second is a new skilling initiative, an initiative that will reach 3 million people across the kingdom with AI fluency and important skills.
Walk me through how you see this region in terms of prominence in this sort of AI now dominated narrative.
Well, I find this part of the world is currently extraordinarily dynamic. Governments are leaning in. They obviously have the financial resources to have an impact. They're diversifying their economies, and as they diversify, they're focused on AI. And I think they're really focused on AI in two very distinct and important ways. One is as an AI sector, with AI national champions, but the other is with the use of AI to really take every part of the economy, innovate quickly, take public services, innovate quickly. And so you actually see some of the most interesting innovations just in using AI here in the Middle East.
What does that data tell you?
If you want to harness the power of AI, focus on how to use AI to strengthen every part of your economy, all of the industries that matter, and use the government and public services to create a role model, because when that role model starts to work, everybody can see it, and it accelerates innovation much more broadly.
It's an opportunity in a way for this region to leapfrog perhaps some of the trials and tribulations that in the West that we face. You name-checked the UAE recently in a congressional hearing. In your mind, how far behind is the United States?
Well, the United States is actually quite a bit behind the leaders if you look at the percentage of the population that is using generative AI. You see countries like Singapore or the UAE, or just even France and Norway and Ireland up in this top tier. So the United States is not yet adopting AI as broadly as it should. Of course, it is the leader in building out infrastructure. It is the leader in a lot of the innovations at the frontier model level. But if you go back to the applications, the use of AI in government, the use of AI across the economy, the truth is, and this is the point I made to a Senate committee, if you want to see the future, you're going to be one step closer to it if you come to this part of the world.
Do you think those words galvanized them to get moving?
I'm not sure that my words ever galvanize Congress. I think people listen.
Does anything?
Yeah, but there are definitely people who have started to want to learn more, people who have come here because of that. And the number one thing I have found is that when people come here, seeing is believing. That is what is galvanizing people.
Tell me this, when you think about all of the conversations surrounding, the China versus America narrative in terms of the AI race, what do you think is going to be the most challenging thing that we're going to face this year? I mean, Elon Musk was talking about this at Davos. He suggested that we're just going to run into a lack of power for the AI that we need, the generation. Where do you see the bottlenecks?
Well, I think the most important aspect of the competition or race between the United States and China is not actually building the most infrastructure within our countries, although that is critical. I'm not discounting it. It's winning the race to reach the rest of the world, to persuade the rest of the world to use, say, an American or call it Western AI stack versus a China AI stack. And that's actually how digital technology almost always works. It's based on these so-called network effects. And right now, you actually see the Chinese making important headroads with open source models. They're good models, and not saying we shouldn't have people use them in a variety of scenarios, but that has opened a door. You have the ability by the Chinese government to subsidize infrastructure. They've already got companies like Huawei and Alibaba in Africa, in South America, and the like. The US has two advantages. One is it has the world's best chips. And the second is, in general, there still is more trust in American technology than Chinese technology. But it only matters if we can use those chips for the American AI stack and not just equalize with the Chinese. And it only matters if we actually come to the rest of the world, build out the infrastructure, offer our services.
How tough are the politics making things? Because there's a lot of question about, the rest of the world, how they're interacting with President Trump, if they're turning toward China. We saw Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, just in Beijing making deals or trying to. Is that something that we should be concerned about?
I think what we're seeing around the world is more governments turning inwards and wanting to be self-reliant, to be independent, more focused on what they call digital sovereignty. Now, there's a fundamental challenge with that. It's an aspiration that is easy to embrace, but it is a reality that is very difficult to achieve. I think the real opportunity is for a group of like-minded companies, say in Western Europe, in Africa, in the United States, in Japan, in India, to come together to say, look, there are common values we will uphold: high governance standards, support for the rule of law, a secure supply chain,
data sovereignty.
All of the things that people look to and care about, and we will work together to advance this. And we will do it across borders. Because the truth is, nobody's really going to succeed on their own, but we need to create that alternative approach. And we need to make clear to the US government and other governments that this actually is the best way to bring AI to the world, even in competition with China.
And ensure a long-term security.
Absolutely. Because I do think one of the things we need to recognize is that as AI becomes more powerful, as countries focus more on digital sovereignty, cybersecurity is the ultimate shield that nations need. Unless they have this kind of effective cybersecurity shield, then all of these other advances and even this notion of sovereignty itself is going to prove illusory.
Yeah, there's been so much conversation recently in the media about how dangerous the cybersecurity attacks are becoming, the fact that there are backdoors into technology. How do you rate Microsoft's safety today as a company?
I feel that we have made tremendous progress over the past 2 years in strengthening the security of our own services and in strengthening our ability to add security to the services of our customers. I think we are actually world leading in cybersecurity threat intelligence, our ability to identify threats. Many of the biggest attacks of the last couple of years have not necessarily, or were not, in fact, on Microsoft or our services, but we were able to find them because of these capabilities. But I do think that there are big challenges in the world. And when it comes to cybersecurity, there are 3 principal challenges. There is enormous Chinese activity, typically focused on espionage, but penetrating national telecommunications networks, not just in the United States, but elsewhere. In Europe, you see escalated Russian activity, combining cyber attacks with influence operations, and you call it kinetic activity, this so-called new phase of hybrid war. And when you see ransomware, we have really seen a huge step, unfortunately, in very sophisticated ransomware using AI. Think about something as simple as how a ransomware attack might start. It's somebody who wants to figure out who you are, who your friends are, who your family members are, and send something to you that is very convincing, maybe referring to somebody you know and trust, using language that is going to be perfectly written in your own language, even using your own expressions. AI is a huge tool, unfortunately, or really in this case, it's become weaponized. And so all of this points to just the critical importance of our working more effectively, using the power of AI as we are, but strengthening cybersecurity defenses.
How vulnerable, in your mind, are governments?
I think governments, frankly, are most vulnerable when they fail to appreciate how rapidly this problem continues to change, when they are still on premise or in their own data center and not in the cloud, and when they're trying to do things by themselves. And I do think there's a number of governments that fall into that category. I think to some degree, the whole digital sovereignty issue is creating the risk that more governments will prioritize trying to keep everything under their own control without, in my view, appreciating that the only defense that will work is a collective defense that relies on a partnership between, say, governments and trusted companies, including with an ability to access data, analyze it, share it, and act on the threats we see.
I'm going to assume that the U.S. government doesn't have this problem.
The U.S. government is, I think, really at the top when it comes to strong cybersecurity protection. But part of it is every day we work so closely with every part of the United States government. And it's that partnership, that really collective action, the combined teamwork that makes all the difference in the world.
Tell me this, the midterms are coming up. There's a lot of concern on both sides of the aisle about what this may mean for the future of the country. One of the big issues, of course, is going to be power bills. People's electricity has gone up, and they're blaming the data centers. Are you behind the notion that companies should take some of this responsibility on themselves? And what I mean is by building out that infrastructure.
Not necessarily building the infrastructure, but paying for the infrastructure that we need and use. We've been very straightforward. Last month, I gave a speech. We announced what we call our Community First AI Infrastructure Initiative. And what we've said is in 6 areas, we'll stand up and serve communities. And it addresses electricity, water, jobs, taxes, skilling. And
because you know these problems are there.
Yes. And you take electricity. I mean, we have a very straightforward pledge. And each of these are pledges to the local community where we are building and operating data centers. We'll pay our way so that our data centers don't increase the electricity bills of the neighborhood. And we cannot protect everyone from every source of inflation for electricity, but I do believe we can protect,
mitigate.
We can ensure that our presence does not lead to an increase in other people's electricity bills, both in how we engage with utilities as they build, and they need to build more electrical generation capacity. We need to help finance that in the form of offtake agreements when there are improvements to the grid that are needed, when there are new electrical substations that need to be built. We effectively pay for those. That's the formula in my view. And I think we need to get out, and I think the whole sector needs to get out. And this is an area where I think the White House is providing the kind of leadership that is needed. I think you'll see them take even more steps. I think you'll see the industry support them. It's just not only the right thing to do, it's the only way to be smart in any way, shape, or form. Because if we can't sustain public trust, we are not going to be able to build the data centers that the country needs.
Do you agree with Elon Musk when he says that we're going to have a problem with power and that it's just not going to keep pace with the amount of AI technology and the chips that we have coming on board?
Well, certainly we see the need for more power. I think that's indisputable. Now, in part, we've been a company that has been forward purchasing for power for some period of time. Mostly what I would say is this: for about 25 years in the United States, since the century began, we've been living in an economy where power generation has been flat. Maybe it goes up by 5% every decade. We're going to need to get to a point where power capacity is growing by, call it, at least 25% every decade. Now, that's going to require a lot of change. It means the whole utility sector needs to change. The investment capacity needs to change. The approach of utility regulators needs to change. Even just the culture of how we all work together to go back to growth. And I just think there's one important thing we should remember. We've done it before. The United States has done it before. The world has done it before. Until 1970, electrical generation doubled every decade. We can get back to growing it by 25% every decade. We just have a lot of work to do.
And final question for you. When we think about the impact that AI is going to have on the world, we talked about what's happening here in the Gulf, what's happening or not happening back in the United States. Parents want to know how much danger their children are in.
I don't think the principal problem today is danger to kids, but let's treat it as a priority. I think that the mistake that maybe we all collectively made together is that when social media exploded, it took too long for everyone to realize the impact this could have on kids. Let's make the protection of children a national priority and a cause for the AI sector. Let's put in place the right kind of guardrails as we create products. I think that is where the responsibility starts. But there are issues of public policy. Ultimately, I think one thing that's important to remember is technology is a great tool. AI is a great tool. It can make curious people smarter, and we should want to encourage people to use it, to be more curious, to ask more questions, to become better writers. But let's also remember that humans need to connect with humans. I think that's fundamental, not just to personal growth, but to mental health, perhaps especially for kids more than any other age group. So let's all come together and let's all recognize we all have a role to play. Whether you're leading a tech company, leading a congressional committee, or you're a parent raising kids. Let's all do it.
Should then a national priority also be the potential job loss?
Absolutely. Whether it's job loss or job gain, or more likely, mostly job change. I think that we have to lean in. Now,
is the White House getting it right, do you think? I mean, are they getting ahead of this?
I think we're all working.
Because there's terror, you know.
The thing that I would say is, first, let's start by being curious, not judgmental. Right now, we're 3 years and 3 months since the launch of ChatGPT. These are early years. We're just beginning to see how the use of AI is starting to change certain jobs. We're starting to see how in some sectors, take something like a call center, it may make people more productive and you may have fewer people working in those call centers. The jobs themselves might be more enriching. They may be even higher paying for the people who are there. We're also seeing new jobs created. We have so much to learn. But I think the right way to start, in part, is for governments to ensure that everybody has the opportunity to learn how to use AI. The one thing that I think is indisputable is that people who can learn AI and use it in their work are going to be more successful in their careers than those who don't have that opportunity. So let's make sure we give everyone that opportunity.
Brad, it's great to see you here in the Gulf. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.